Hello there. Hi, everyone, for joining our community virtual meetup for Plant 3D June session. This is Vinod here. Along with me, I have David.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks, David. So a little bit notes before we get into the meat of the presentation. So this webinar is arranged on GoToWebinar platform. We have currently muted everyone, but we'll open it up for Q&A, so where you can ask your questions during the Q&A. But in between, if you have any questions during the presentation, just feel free to use the questions tab or the chat tab to ask questions, and David will be able to assist you. And if you have any audio issues, just make sure you are connected to the right audio devices on your machine using the GoToWebinar configuration panel for computer audio and the video for this webinar. Okay. Okay, like I mentioned, so all the lines are muted for now. So any questions, raise the questions in the Q&A segment, and David will be able to help you. One more thing with respect to recordings for these webinars, they are available on our customer success website under Autodesk, and you should be able to grab all the previous webinars along with this current one. We will be also sharing them to all the registrants who attended this session. Okay, a little bit introduction about ourselves. So David, I think those of you who have been attending this webinar series for the past few months or years or so, you probably know David. So David is one of our key speakers here in this community meetup session. He primarily supports our enterprise customers and Autodesk community for Plant 3D. Not just only Plant 3D, he has a vast range of experience in Navisworks, Fusion, Wall, BIM, and Recap, and he's currently based out of our Sydney office. And thank you, David, for joining here and facilitating the webinar. And a little bit introduction. Thank you. A little bit introduction about myself. So I'm currently the technical lead for AutoCAD toolsets, and like David, I also do present in Autodesk universities around the world, and I'm primarily responsible for handling business escalations and support issues and creating high quality content for our customers to pursue in Autodesk Knowledge Network. So I'm currently based out of Singapore office. So David and I will be coordinating today's session. Okay, a little bit about the safe harbor statement. I think you guys are pretty much aware of this safe harbor statement. So I'll just read the first few lines. So whatever we make as statements here are planned or future development efforts for our existing or new products and services. And again, these statements are not intended to promise or guarantee of business results, future availability of products and services or features, but merely reflect our current plans and where we are heading with the product strategy and so on. So if you are having any further questions around about what we have presented, you can use the Q&A segment, but you can also write to us through the customer success portal, and we'll be happy to provide you some feedback as well on what we present today and in future webinars. Okay, so what's in for agenda? So this is the standard pattern in which we do every meetup sessions. So we'll first start with overview, what we are going to cover for today, and then we'll have some general Plant 3D news, and then what's the theme for this month's webinar. So this month's theme is, I think you might have seen from the invites itself, it's about orthographics. So we're going to cover about what's the new ortho function that came in with Plant 3D 2021, which was launched in March this year. We will also cover some tips and tricks around what are the do's and don'ts when you are creating orthographic drawings in Plant 3D. And then we also cover a little bit around handling external references during ortho generation, primarily focusing on advanced steel structural models and inventor models, equipments that you bring into Plant 3D for ortho generation. And with that, we'll also do some follow-up on questions from the last month, and finally, we'll open it up for a Q&A segment. Okay, so let's get into the overview. What are we going to cover for today? So what we're going to cover today is understand how you create an ortho template. So we're going to walk through a little bit through Plant 3D, how you define your ortho template and how you start creating your orthographic drawings. And we'll also share a few slides which explains what are the do's and don'ts when you are creating these ortho drawings. And same with the XREFs, as well as bringing in the inventor equipment model or the advanced steel structural objects. So the scope of this is to have a casual engagement with small portion of news and some information around the features. This is primarily a discussion-driven meetup session. So we will have ample time for you guys to ask any questions around the product or the feature that we are demonstrating today. Okay, so with that, let's get to the first topic of the day, which is the Plant 3D news for the month, which is Plant 3D Ortho new feature for 2021. So what is the new feature that was introduced in the orthographic drawings? Okay, so let me go open it up on what we have here. So this is a long-lasting request from many of our customers. I think this is in Plant 3D Idea Station as well. Customers have been asking, can we have the installation shown up in the orthographic drawing? Yes, it's possible from Plant 3D 2021. So what are the things that we have included here? So you can have a transparent installation in your 3D model. You'll see that in the next slide, the image of it. And then with respect to installations, installations can be displayed for your piping objects. And you have 3 different segments on how you want to show your installation. So you can see a picture down here. Let me take the pen out and highlight. So, so if you want to have none of your installation to be shown, you have the option which is by default no installation. And this happens during the time of ortho creation. So you can toggle around what you want to show with respect to installation. And then you have a solid line installation. And then you can also show a hidden line installation, as you can see here. So these are 2 features that are included around how you want to control how your installation need to be displayed for your piping in your orthographic drawings. And existing orthographic drawings, what you can do here is you can use the existing for the existing orthographic drawing, you can use the installation tool to place any installation symbol that you wanted to do. You can see that on the right hand side where we have put in an installation symbol there. So you can use the installation tool to place any installation symbol that you want to add. So all these things are part of the installation, are part of the Plant 3D orthographic dialog itself. You will see that in a moment when we display that in Plant 3D. But this is the big feature introduction to Plant 3D orthographics. Now here is a quick snapshot. As you can see that the installation is kind of displayed here in the 3D model here. And then you will see that in this picture. Give me a moment. So here you can see that in this screenshot where you can see that the installation is displayed, and here you also see that the installation is transparent here, and you can use this transparent installation in your orthographic drawing as well when you are trying to display that. And another key thing with this installation is the installation that you are trying to display for your piping model in your orthographics is displayed in a separate layer, which is called an installation layer. And say if you have a line number assigned for your piping, for example here, let's say 1001 is your line number, and then what happens is the installation for this piping in your ortho drawing gets stored under 1001 installation layer. So you get a separate layer for your installation for each of your pipes that you have a line number assigned to it. Now, what happens for pipes that doesn't have any installation layer that is assigned to it? Doesn't have a line number assigned to it. So in those cases, what happens is when you have an unassigned line pipe, the installation is displayed on the 0 installation layer, which is commonly used for all the pipes that are unassigned. So you will be able to see and control those installation display under the 0 installation layer. As long as you have a line number information, then you can display it in that line number insulation layer. If not, it goes to the unassigned insulation layer. So what will happen if I have external reference drawings? Can it be shown in my master drawing? Yes. If you have insulation on your external reference drawing, it will be shown on your master drawing. And again, you can also control the insulation, whether it needs to be transparent or solid, like what we saw in the previous slide. Okay, so before we go there, I just want to do a quick demo of where this function is in Plan3D. So let me go ahead and David, can you just confirm whether you can see my Plan3D screen?
I certainly can.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, David. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go toggle back to my source model there, and I'm just going to try open up one of the model files here. Okay. Now I'm going to generate an ortho here, and then I'm going to show you where this function is and how you can kind of control the insulation setup. So I'm going to just call it a new one, calling it as a demo. And then I'm going to say, okay. So when I am trying to create the orthographics now, okay, so now we have the bounding box here. And okay, so now here on the ribbon panel, you can see all the different insulation types that you want to control. We talked about that in the previous slide. So you can see the solid insulation, hidden insulation, and then you have the no insulation. So what you wanted to choose, you can make the change right away before the ortho gets generated. So I'm going to choose solid insulation for now for the demo. And then I'm going to say okay to it. And I'm going to place the piping model here. It will start generating it up. And I have a sample one that I have already generated for you. So let me go ahead and open that. So, okay, I think it's here. It's active here. So you can see here, I put in with different insulation settings that you have the piping here. So you can see one with insulation on, one with solid insulation on, and one with no insulation. So you can control it within the same drawing with the different ortho viewports, how you want to display your piping with and without insulation. So that's the cool thing that was introduced in the 2021 at the moment. Here you can also see in this viewport that we have also put in an insulation symbol as well that you wanted to add in using the insulation tool that you can see here. You can able to add any insulation symbol that you wanted to add for your piping model. So this is the new feature introduction for 2021. Let's go a little bit back onto do's and don'ts of orthographic drawing. So let's talk a little bit about, like, for those who are starting up with your Plan3D or starting to configure your ortho drawing. So these are the things that are extremely useful for you to start with. So what are the do's and don'ts here? So let's talk about the do's first, and let's go into the don'ts at a later time. So so on the do's, keep source drawing in the project under the proper folder structure. As you all know, Plan3D as a software organizes itself on a folder structure, and you have a project XML which defines the pathing and everything. So always try to keep your drawings in the right folder structure. Do not try to move those drawings outside of the folder structure, especially on your Windows Explorer. As long as you try to do it within the project manager, it is still fine, but still not recommended to do that on a regular basis. You set up your project up front, how you want to display your folder structure, and operate it in the right folder structure in order to avoid any challenges with generating of ortho or ISO drawings at a later time. But even if you need to move some folders at a later point of time on your project, do it within the project browser window. Don't do it in the Windows Explorer. So what happens is the association between that ortho drawings and the Plan 3D model can be disturbed when you try to do that on Windows Explorer. Again, on the don't side, do not move source drawings. Do not rename your source drawings. So meaning source drawings means your model drawings. If you are trying to rename, you have to do it in your project browser, and then you also have to create your new ortho drawing. Don't do that in the Windows Explorer and expect the connectivity with your ortho drawings to be done automatically. Okay, so these are a couple of don'ts for with respect to naming and renaming of your drawings specific to ortho function. So the next one is if source drawings or external references are overwritten with newer versions. So this can happen, especially when you're migrating your project to a newer release, or if your external drawings were saved on a newer version and brought over. So in those situations, try to make sure you create your new orthographic drawings just to create the associativity again. And again, here as well, don't rename these drawings, calling it as a new version or other different naming conventions outside of your project browser. And then the last one, it's another example here for the point that I mentioned last, which is if you are having some structural drawings coming from Advanced Steel and you're trying to update those structural drawings, use the same exact file name that you brought over from Advanced Steel. Don't try to kind of change those file name. Keep the same file name of that Advanced Steel structural drawing that you're bringing in. Otherwise, again, as I keep mentioning, that it will break the link, similar to whatever I have talked about in there. So these are all more on the do's and don'ts on how you have to keep your project, and specific to ortho, how you have to structure your ortho drawings on the project browser. So now let's go a little bit more about what are all the do's and don'ts when you are editing your ortho drawings. So don't edit the completed orthographic drawing in model space. Do it in your, so each ortho drawing, you can do it on the layout and you can make modifications. Say maybe you want to add some annotations, you want to add some additional insulation, or you want to add some symbols down there. So do that, or modification to the ortho BOM. All those things you can do that in your paper space, but don't try to attempt to modify your ortho drawing in model space. Again, this can break the link. And then another key thing that we want to highlight, this is one of the common issues that we see with customers facing when they generate ortho, is when you bring any external reference drawings, or even it can be an AutoCAD external reference drawing or a structural drawing from Advanced Steel. When you're bringing it into your Plan 3D model for ortho generation, respect on the plan coordinate system and keep it in the origin. Actually, I should have corrected this one. So keep your external reference drawing in the origin. Do not keep it far away from your origin. And primarily, majority of your piping structure and equipment data, you should definitely keep it close to your, in the origin, in order to make sure your ortho gets generated appropriately. We also have a detailed documentation that was presented on our AKN. The link is available here, which talks about how to work with actual coordinates in AutoCAD Plan 3D, which is something crucial for you to look into when you're handling external references and generating ortho drawings out of that. So I would strongly recommend you to go through this link on how to operate on actual coordinates in Plan 3D. And then when you are working your ortho drawings or editing your ortho drawings that are having objects coming from other applications or even between multiple versions, just make sure you are using proper workflows. As we keep telling you that edit the drawings from the browser itself, and make sure you retain the right file formats when you are incorporating them into your models and drawings, especially when you are bringing in external reference drawings from other Autodesk applications like Advanced Steel or Civil 3D, or same way for non-Autodesk software applications as well. Like say if you have other third-party applications where you have objects created and you want to bring them into your Plant 3D model, then try to bring them in the right workflow, especially when you're handling them as external references, so that when you generate your orthos, there is no issues with creating your orthographic drawings. So these are, when you are editing your orthographic drawings, these are some things that you need to be watchful of, so that your ortho drawings have no issues when they get generated out of these 3D models that have objects outside of Plant 3D. Okay, now we will talk a little bit on the do's and don'ts when we do a quick demo, but I wanted to finish this slide and then go through the demo, because this is the primary segment that we wanted to actually show you. How do I create a custom ortho template? So I have highlighted a few things here, but we'll see them in the demo as well. So normally, where do I access my ortho setup? So I have, if I want to access my ortho setup, I have to go to the project panel under the home tab and select your project manager, or if you have already launched your project, just click on the project manager and go to the project setup. And within the project setup, there will be an option for ortho drawing settings. Under the ortho drawing settings, you will have different options to select. This is how it will look like. Ortho drawing settings will look like. So we'll see that in a moment. Here, there are some information for you to control. For example, you can control what template that you wanted to use. And there are a few more settings here, which is like whether you want to show the hidden line piping by default. So it's actually turned on by default. So if you want to show your hidden line piping in your ortho, you can set it to on. If you don't want to show your hidden line piping, you can just check them off. Same way with respect to your elbow corners, whether you want to have it cornered or curved. So how you display your elbow in your ortho drawings, you can control that here. Sorry, not the elbow, I mean the elbow center lines. You can display that based on how you wanted to show them in your ortho drawings. So these are preliminary setup that will happen when you are in the ortho drawing settings. And after that, if you want to configure your ortho setup furthermore, then you can click the setup title block tool here. That allows you to edit how your ortho display needs to be. And when you edit that, you can actually control what's the default path of your templates need to be. What is the default path for your ortho output needs to be. And you can also control how your layers need to be displayed. And then like say, for example, we just saw a few minutes back around the insulation being an insulation layer. So you want to move it to a different layer. You could do all that in this title block setup edit function, where you can create your customized ortho setup. So a little bit more around that. So when you are trying to customize your ortho template, once you are editing the title block setup, then you have a segment for ortho settings. In the ortho settings, again, you can go to configure panel and look for ortho generation settings, where you can control all the things that I just mentioned now. So you can control how your layer needs to look like for your center lines, equipment, pipe supports, and so on. You can change your layer information. And if you have already a drawing that has a predefined layer information from the 3D model, you can make your ortho or you can make Plant 3D to acquire that layer information and display on your Plant 3D ortho drawings. We'll see that in a moment in Plant 3D. And then you can also control the styles, the default styles of your annotations, which is your dimensions, multi-leaders, and text notes that you are adding in. You can control how they want it to be displayed. So you want to change your dimension style or leader style. All those things you can make it in the title block setup itself. And then the last change that you can do is around the BOM. So by default, there are 3 different BOM setups available: simple, grouped, and independent columns. I think the naming convention will itself make you understand what's the difference in there. So if you want to keep all components separate, then you have the simple. You want to group flanges and you want to group piping data separately, then you can group them. And again, you can also call them into independent columns as well. And then this is the BOM setup tool is the one that actually creates the table there for the bill of materials, and you can also customize how the bill of materials table need to be done. So when you are generate, and then you can save that to your ortho template. So when you generate your ortho, all these table changes that you made will be automatically flown into your ortho drawing, and you don't need to make any further changes that you have done there. So let's go ahead and quickly see that piece in Plant 3D. Let me once again ask David whether he could able to see my Plant 3D setup.
I'm seeing Plant 3D, yep.
Yeah, so where do I access ortho setup? So as we talked a few minutes back, go to your project browser. You have a project there, so go to your project setup there. Okay, now, okay, so it's a collaboration project, so it's asking me to check out if I want to edit the project information. I hope it does it quickly. I didn't anticipate this for a second. Okay, good. Okay. I'm still waiting for the project setup to kick in. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Okay, so under the project setup, you have the ortho drawing settings. This is what we talked about. So this is where you will configure your custom templates. So before I go into configuration of custom templates, I also want to talk about the general settings here. Under the general settings, you have the path here. So under the path, you can actually see orthos here, and you can define where your ortho output needs to be in. And you can change that where your ortho output needs to be in. Since it's a collaboration project, it's grayed out here because I'm loading it from the cache. But you should be able to, in a normal project, you should be able to change the path where your ortho deliverables are. Again, when we mention about do's and don'ts, if you are setting that up in your project, just retain that. Don't keep changing and toggling these paths. And don't keep some orthos in one folder and some orthos in another folder. So avoid those things when you are trying to generate your ortho drawings. Now, let's go back to the ortho drawing settings and then see what is editable when you are looking at creating your custom template. We just saw a few minutes back that the standard setup changes that are available in the ortho drawing settings, which is around ortho generation options for hidden line piping, and then the elbow center line, how you want to display. So again, here you have the option to change where your default ortho DWT template file is. There are plenty of preloaded ones that are available. You can also create your own template based on your company needs. Now, let's go customize the template a little bit here and see what is available in the customization window. So when I say, okay, so when I say set up my ortho setup, so then what happens is you get three different columns here. One is how you want to set up the table setup, and then you have the bill of materials, and then ortho settings. So when I click this ortho settings, here is where I control all the layer information that I wanted to use in my ortho drawings. So here is where I define, okay, my equipments need to be in which layer, center lines need to be in which layer, and my piping components need to be in which layer, and so on. And even if you could look, insulation, when we start the demo on new features, we talked about insulation being on a separate layer. As you can see, it's already predefined on an insulation layer. I believe you can change this to a different layer, but we recommend you to, for now, to retain the existing layer that's available in order to get your optimum results there. So, and let's assume if you have an AutoCAD model which already have all your layer information populated, and you don't want to recreate some of these layer information, especially for your external reference drawing coming from structural objects, and you don't want those structural objects layers to be changed to different, so their colors, the line weights look different and so on. So in order to do that, just you click use 3D model layers, and then what it will do is it will inherit all the layer information coming from the model. And with respect to styles, there are, I mean, um, like AutoCAD, you can define your dimension styles, and you can create your own new dimension styles and add them in here under the default styles. Similarly, for the multi-leader as well, there are um, there are options for you to create multi-leader outside of this environment and bring them in here on how you want to show your multi-leader display. And here is a quick uh, uh, link to get to the multi-leader style manager and make those changes. And this is same as what your AutoCAD feature is. It's not something new with respect to dim style or multi-leader style. So it's just that you can invoke it from the auto template dialog itself and create your new multi-leader style or a dimension style. Similarly goes for the text style as well. If you want to create new text styles or bring in new fonts, feel free to do so. All these are connected to the AutoCAD feature itself. So whatever you make changes within the AutoCAD feature for that drawing can be applied back into your auto template as well. So you can do either from here or from the dim style command and bring those changes in here. So depending on how you want to use your workflow into. And that's on the auto settings, and then we'll go into the table setup. So here you can quickly make changes around like how your bill of material table needs to be look like. So we talked about 3 different styles that are preloaded there, which is whether you want a simple BOM or a grouped with some category titles, segmenting each of the components that you wanted to display on. And then you can group it with independent columns as well, how you want to group them on. So you can get a short preview as well, how it looks like and where you want it to change. So for this demo, I'm going to just keep it as a simple BOM. And you can also define whether it's by a schedule or a pressure class. So if you want to have a single column for schedule or pressure class, you can actually do that by selecting that. To make it each one of them as a single column. And then you can also add additional columns here. So you want to show additional properties. You can very well go in and pick those properties that you wanted to add in, and then you can add them here into your BOM display. So all these things you can customize upfront before you generate your ortho drawings. And under the settings as well, how you want to sort your BOM. You want to sort your BOM by quantity. You want to sort your BOM by type of the component. You can make all those sorting recommendations here itself. And then you want to sort by fixed length piping. All these options are available at the moment within the settings interface itself. And you can select if you want to show that on existing piping. And same for cutback elbows as well. So you want to show cutback elbows in your BOM data, you can choose to do that as well. And if you want to say, have a custom description as well loaded for your family information that comes in from the Plan 3D spec and catalog, you can also do that from the bottom segment that allows you to get your custom description as well. So all these settings changes you could make upfront in your ortho template and save it to DWT. Now, the last segment that I wanted to highlight here is on the bill of materials. How you want to show your BOM. You can pre-save your BOM on your template. So, for example, you want your BOM table to look like this, and you have to position it like, for example, in this position within your orthographic drawing. You can set it up front. You don't need to do that during the time of ortho creation or after. So you can place your BOM table where it needs to be, and then you can save it to the template. Later, when you generate your ortho, the bill of materials gets updated for the model that you're generating ortho, and the location of your table will retain where you have tried to put it up in your template. So that's the key things around setting up your Plan 3D ortho template. So when you can see, when I say return to project setup, it immediately popped up saying to me that, okay, save these settings to the template. So I can save it to the template straight away. So all those changes that I made will now just be part of the template that I just have created now. I can use this template on any new ortho drawings on this demo files that I have at the moment, and it will display based on whatever the settings changes that I have made it now. So, and it'll bring you back again to the project setup. After it brings you back to the project setup, just apply and close the dialog. Or you can just say, okay, it'll do the same thing. And since it's again as a collaboration project, it's trying to go and update the changes into the collaboration as well. So we'll come back to Plan 3D in a moment. Let me go into a couple more slides, and then we'll come back to Plan 3D with ortho generation, and then editing that ortho generation, how it looks like. So let's go back to the slides again. So a couple more slides I wanted to highlight on, which is around creating ortho models with external reference drawings. So especially here with respect to inventor models. So I think most of you would want to use some of the inventor models as equipments in your Plan 3D drawings. So some of your inventor models might be highly complex and have a huge graphics, which could cause some issues and a very lengthy level of details in your assembly. That could cause problems when you are bringing that into Plan 3D and generating ortho. So the recommendation that we want to provide you is when you are bringing an inventor model and an inventor assembly into Plan 3D, try to shrink wrap that assembly and minimize the model complexity by doing a shrink wrap. So reduce your level of details there and keep a very bare minimum simple model. I mean, meaning you have all the display that you need, but you don't need to have the extreme details that you show up in inventor model. And once you have done that, you can bring this as an ADSK file format. ADSK is the standard file format connecting between Plan 3D and Inventor. It's not only Plan 3D and Inventor, it's a native interoperability file format within various Autodesk applications. So within Inventor, you will have the option to save it as a .adsk file when you create an equipment. And then in Plan 3D, you can import this ADSK file. When you try to create an equipment, I think we had previous sessions around that, but I don't want to go deep into creating equipments. But when you create an equipment, you have the option of choosing an ADSK inventor file and bring it into Plan 3D and defining that as an equipment. Once you have defined this equipment, then when you are creating your ortho drawings, you have an equipment in your model. You can select that when, whether you want to display that equipment alone in your orthographic drawing. You can see on the right-hand screen that when you generate your ortho drawing, it allows you to choose what component that you want to. If you have an existing equipment that you wanted to choose for your ortho generation, you can go ahead and pick that equipment and generate it in your ortho drawings. So this way you can connect your inventor equipment model into Plan 3D orthographics drawings. And again, try to keep these ADSK file within the same project folder if possible, and avoid moving this ADSK file when you insert them into your plant model, and retain them in your project folder itself for more stability and accuracy. And then the next one is on advanced steel objects. I think this is something like Inventor, a lot of users would love to bring some of their structural data into Plan 3D. So how do I bring the structural data? I mean, obviously you know how to bring the structural data into Plan 3D. So to do that, for those who don't know, it's that you can use advanced steel export option, which allows Plan 3D to export the structural elements and from Plan 3D to advanced steel. And if you want to bring the advanced steel object into Plan 3D, they are going to be native DWG file. There are two options that you can bring it in. You can bring it in as an external reference drawing, or you can insert that advanced steel object into Plan 3D model. So we normally recommend you to use the insert option, but you can also use the external reference and bring the advanced steel structural drawing into Plan 3D as an external reference. So what happens when I use the advanced steel model in my orthographic drawings? So in advanced steel, the display of your structural data can be done in different ways. But in Plan 3D, when you bring an advanced steel model and generate an orthographic drawing, it is going to display in a standard display mode in your orthographic drawings. So you're going to see some difference in your graphics. This is kind of expected because Plan 3D only allows orthographic to show that on a standard display mode. And again, we talked about this in the previous slides. Same goes for advanced steel object as well. Use matching 0,0 origin, 0,0, which is on the origin. Put your advanced steel object in, whether you insert them or whether you do an external reference, adhere to the plan coordinate system and make sure that you are inserting that object or the external reference file in the origin itself. So, and another thing we also want to highlight is install advanced steel object enablers. There are Plan 3D object enablers for advanced steel. Leverage that object enabler and install them if you want to make sure all your advanced steel objects are displayed correctly in Plan 3D. And again, place your advanced steel drawings in the Plan 3D project directory under the external reference file folders. Do not keep your advanced steel data in a separate folder or a separate project. You still can keep it in the separate project, but also bring a copy of it within the Plan 3D project structure itself, so that it is easily readable for Plan 3D when it's generating ortho or iso drawings for the advanced steel objects. So this is the two things that we want to highlight when you are bringing in models from Inventor or Advanced Steel while generating your orthographic drawings. Now, let me go back into Plan 3D for a second and actually show how the orthographic generation works here. Let me see. David, can you able to see my Plan 3D launching here?
I'm seeing your presentation right now.
Let me see. Not sure why. Okay, now I think I'm
There we
back.
go. Yep.
Can you see? Okay, perfect. Thanks, David. Okay, so we did cover the part where the template needs to be set up, how we make sure we configure our orthographic templates and so on. Now let's look into when you generate your orthographics. Oops. How you are able to configure some of the things. So it was a bad idea to take a collaboration project. Sorry, guys. It keeps refreshing every moment. Okay, good. Now let's go to the Plan 3D model here. I think I have it here. So let me go ahead and close all the demo authors just to avoid any confusion. Okay, now I have a simple model that I have just brought in to Plan 3. And now I just want to generate my ortho and configure and want to see how the configurations that I made in the template are shown up. So one of the configurations that you want to watch is where I put the bill of materials and so on. So now you can see I can go to create ortho view under the home tab. And then I can create any number of drawings for the same piping model. So I'm going to call it as demo 2 for now. And you can watch here, you can define your author information, who's generating the orthographic drawings. And the default path, we saw that in the project setup that we changed the path. And that path will be the default path for how my orthographic drawing needs to be, where my orthographic drawing needs to be displayed. And same with the template as well. We made some changes and we saved that to the ortho template. And that is the template that will be used here. So let's go ahead and say, okay. Now, Okay, so now you get the option of picking that using the bounding box. You can pick what objects that you want to display in your orthographic drawing. And you can use the controls here, and you can use your grips to control how you want to show your bounding box and so on. So if you have a very complex model, try to make sure they are covered through the bounding box. There's no objects that is outside of the bounding box that actually will be missed out when you are generating your ortho. So you can also use the navigation cube to kind of rotate and see whether you have all the object captured within the bounding box. And here again, like what I mentioned earlier, you can control how your insulation needs to be. And remember, I choose the cut pipe symbols to be shown up front, so it's automatically highlighted here. And hidden line piping, I turned it on, so by default it is turned on. Even if you did it in your template and you don't want to show it on a specific drawing, you can control and make the changes on the fly here. So it's not that if you do it in the template, it's end of all. Some feature enablement that you made in the template can be overridden while generating your orthographics. So here I'm going to just leave it as it is. So I want to show the hidden line piping. And then what I do is I just press OK here, and you will see that the ortho gets generated right away. I think I picked up on a wrong scale. That's okay. So and then now I wanted to do an update of my bill of materials, and I could select this, and it should be updating a bill of material here. David, any thoughts here? Why this guy is not updating the BOM?
Sorry, did you refresh the views
Um,
and update bill of materials?
I'm trying to update the BOM, but it's not updating it here. And it's a new view here. So anyway, so
Yeah,
this,
if you didn't have that there previously, it's not linked to that view.
right. Oh, okay. Now I got it. You see here?
Yep.
So what I am, the view was not linked to the BOM, so that's why it was not showing. So the moment I selected the view, then it started updating the bill of materials. And you can see where I positioned it, that's where the BOM started off as well from the template. And if you want to make any ortho annotation changes, you can do that, or any BOM annotation changes that you wanted to make as well. And you can select the BOM data and then start editing those annotation changes that you wanted to make here. So that's on the ortho customization on the fly when you are generating your ortho views. Let me go back to the slides again, and we want to cover a few more things. There are some best practices articles on orthographic drawings. David has created a wonderful AU presentation on orthographic demystified. And then we have a do's and don'ts about orthographics in our piping blog. And there are some more knowledge articles done by us and by our partners around the world. I've given all those very good articles that are handful for you when you are creating your ortho drawings or customizing your ortho templates, or while you are adding in any drawing data from Inventor or Advanced Steel Objects, how you want to make sure those are displayed properly. All those things we have kind of put in some of these nice articles, which actually goes through the entire workflow. I would recommend you guys to actually go through them after the class, as it would be much beneficial for you. Okay, before we go into a Q&A segment, I want to highlight on one changes that we did to our Plan 3D community. I think for those who are joining, this is the landing page of the Plan 3D community virtual meetup under the Autodesk Customer Success Portal. So you should be able to see how you can register your new webinar series attendance. And here is the detail link. So if you want to go straight away to the registration page. You can do it from here. And then if you want to watch all your previous recordings, you can go to this landing page and you will see all the previous recording, which includes the recordings are available as YouTube playlists. You can watch them and save them as a YouTube playlist on your YouTube account. And if you want to look into the Q&A of the previous sessions, like the previous session was on May 12th on Revit interoperability with Plant. David has done that, and you can see the Q&A segment is also uploaded there. So all the questions that were asked in the previous sessions are uploaded there, and the questions from today's session will be also uploaded there for you to access. And obviously the presentation will be available to you. And feel free to register for your next webinar series under the Autodesk Customer Success Portal for Plant 3D. With that, we will go back to some Q&A. There are some important reference materials and links that we have provided for you for your reference. This will be shared in the part of the PowerPoint presentation. And you can go ahead and access some of the Autodesk University material or Plant 3D YouTube channel where we are creating some Plant 3D workflow videos. These are some things that you can leverage on for your self-learning on the product. So now we go into the Q&A segment. Any questions, David, or anything that you want to highlight?
So there's been a bunch of questions come through, which is really good to see. Most of them I've been answering as we've been going through. I left this one till now because I wanted to answer it directly. So the question was asked a little while back when you were demonstrating some things about can we import IFC files into Plant 3D? But the simple answer is not really. The Plant 3D environment doesn't do that very well, if at all. There are a number of different ways to get around that, and my honest, the best recommendation would, if you want the best quality output, would be to go via Revit. That is one of the great platforms for that, and then Revit can be easily exported to an AutoCAD DWG to bring that into your Plant 3D environment. There are ways to do that through AutoCAD architecture as well, but that's a bit more complicated. The other simple answer is using Navisworks. You can open an IFC file in Navisworks, or import it rather, and that can then be used as a coordination model in your plant environment. That won't, however, then work in the orthographic space. So going through the converter would be a much better way. Again, if you're just trying to view it, the coordination model is a great way to do that and really easy. If you happen to be using the BIM 360 solutions, BIM 360 Coordinate or the BIM 360 generally will view, the viewers all view IOC files. So if you're using BIM 360 Coordinate in that space, or Coordination, sorry, in that space, then you can just dump the native IOC file into BIM 360 Coordination and the plant models in there as well, and they will do that automatic clash detection and all the issues and things natively without having to have any conversions. But generally, best thing is through Revit and export to AutoCAD DWG, because then you can do advanced things in Revit if you need to. Do you want to add anything to that, Revit? Vinod, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think you covered most of it. Just to add, because I did testing recently with plant file on AutoCAD architecture and MEP. So as long as just want to add to what David mentioned, as long as the model is simple, architecture and MEP has the IFC translators, allows you to import them and save it as an AutoCAD native DWG. Then you can bring it as an external reference and then generate it in your auto. But if it is something very complex, what we have seen is AutoCAD architecture has challenges importing that IFC and then processing it as an AutoCAD DWG. At that point, you have to break that into multiple IFCs and then bring it to Navisworks to, like what David mentioned, to create a coordination model there. that is the option if your model that you're bringing in is quite complex and a lot of piping data. I think the best is bringing it into Navisworks just for display. But if you want to generate an ortho, I think David said it rightly. Revit is the best option. So it depends on how you want to bring the IFC and how complex the IFC is. So you can leverage various products within. And I do understand Revit is not part of Plant 3D package. Architecture and MEP are as part of one AutoCAD toolset. So as long as if your model is simple, you could go to the architecture route, or Navisworks as another alternative down there.
So there was a couple of, I just want to touch on, I'm running out of time very quickly. So yeah, there was a question around the HVAC and cable trays. I have answered that in the chat already. Just to touch on that generally, Plant 3D can do it, and I've added in there just now a link to Autodesk App Store search function that highlights a couple of apps to do that. It's not my personal preference. While those tools will do it, it can be a bit clunky. Absolutely try them out and see if they work for you. If you're looking at HVAC, I would strongly recommend, again, using AutoCAD MEP, because that's absolutely sweet tool for that. Really, really good. And again, as long as the object enables are working, there's really fairly good interaction between the two products. Alternatively, you've got the Revit MEP side as well, although then you've got to do the export. So have a look at those if that helps. So the gentleman, Raymond, you've question around the object enables not coming in Plant 3D. Usually that's associated with the installation order, so try repairing that. You can always just install the object enables again, and it should work. But if that doesn't help, please raise a case. And I know, well, I'll see your case because obviously, Raymond, I know who you are. A couple of questions coming through, thick and fast. About all our structural work done in Revit and piping we want to do in Plant 3D. How can we use them? Thank you, Vinod. He's typing already. Okay. Oh, wow. That's a big question. I need to scroll my window. Let's try with a small one. Can we export 3D files to step files or STP files? Not natively out of Plant 3D. You could do a workflow through 3ds Max, although there'd be a lot of cleanup in that.
David, just to add, so if you are having one AutoCAD tool sets, I think that's another advantage. AutoCAD Mechanical has a robust step file translator. You could use that and bring the file and save it as an AutoCAD DWG and bring it into Plant 3D. Sorry, even in terms of export, then you can bring the file, open the file in Mechanical, the plant file, and then you can do a step out from AutoCAD Mechanical.
Okay. Okay, so it's a very long question here. I might get the question read before we finish. So there's been much work done in the author generation and linking with views in recent distributions of Plant 3D. Yes, there has been quite a bit of work done to improve things, or changes to the ortho portion on Plant 3D. So yeah, look, it hasn't been revamped. The newest feature is that installation feature, but there has been quite a lot of improvements to Plant 3D over the last couple of years in general, and a number of those in the ortho space. So yes, that's definitely a focus point, is general stability and functionality. You haven't seen it listed in the updates for a few years. Yeah, mainly because it's in the background and smaller issues. It's about making the stability and functionality better. I've found previously issues such as updating bombs won't retain bill of materials table format. I did see something about that recently. I'm just trying to get this through so we can get it done. Russell, I might go through your comment in a bit more detail with Vinod after this, because we're going to run out of time very quickly. I will just simply say, yes, we've done a lot of work in getting things fixed up. If you have any ideas or suggestions, please drop into the Autodesk Ideas Station, find the Plant 3D ones, log them in there. That is the best way to get them through. And there is, as I put them in the thread before, a forum post that if you've got comments or feedback on this particular meetup, so it's just about running the meetup, suggestions or comments, we'd love to see it there. And we've had also the store page, where you can get the presentations in the next couple of days when I get time to get them up there. And the recording links are in there as well, which is now in the YouTube page as Vinon showed before. And we're also putting unanswered questions in that place for you to access after the fact when we can. It often takes about a week to get those answers all done and published. So if you're looking for those from the previous meetups, they're all posted in there, available to everybody. There you go. Thank you, Vinod. So, Russell, I'll make sure I get an answer. Yours into there to get an answer, and anything else that comes through, I'll make sure we do.
Right. Good. Okay, so David, are we on top of the hour now?
We are, mate. I think we'll call it. And I just want to say thank you, everyone. This is great to see this many people here. Thank you very much for being there. And for those who came in early, especially thank you very much for being there early.
Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to see you in the next Meetup webinar series. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks, Vinod.
Thanks, guys.